Yeah.
It's not mine.
That is up to you. Well, I mean, I think everything else. Yes.
For his sake.
You got 30 seconds. Are you double? Yeah. Son of.
Okay, he's a senator.
Son
From
of.
Durban.
Is half the son of it. Yep.
Yeah, she's in the top.
Where is Rachel from? Where is Rachel from? Rachel? Yeah.
Can we put these in our windows at home? Or do you want them that?
So, where is the wife of Isa? His son is here. But he decided, but Ibrahim decided to marry his son, right? So his son is get a wife. So where did he send her? So then let's go to Jacob.
Are you Nestle? I knew about Nestle. No, thank you for sharing that.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us here today. My name is Amina Ahmed, and I will be your MC this afternoon. I don't think I need to spend that much time talking about why we're all here today. All happening in Palestine. All of us know about the displacement of so many people. We know about the occupation. We know about the women who are being raped, and we know about the men and women again who are being killed in Gaza right now, who are being displaced in Sheikh Jarrah. We know what is happening in Palestine. So I'm not gonna take out that much time to talk about the situation. We have our speakers in the back to do that for us today. But what I did want to do was, after seeing the amount of children in the audience today, the amount of young people in the audience, I wanted to take out a moment to read the names of some of the children who have been killed in Gaza. There have been over 60 children children, right? I'm talking about kids that are 13 years old, 15 years old. I'm 17. Kids my age, around my age, a little bit older than me, who have been murdered, who went to sleep in their Eid clothes. Some of them are described. Some of them went to the market to get vegetables for their mother to cook food. Some of them were playing in their front yard with their younger sister when they were bombed and killed. Some of their bodies have never been found. Some of their parents are still looking for the bodies of their children 3 weeks later. And I want to read the names of some of these children. There's over 60 names, so I'm not going to stand here. It'll take me a long time. And I don't know if I have the capability to read the name of 60 children who have been murdered, 60 of my brothers and sisters. I have a little sister. She's 8 years old, and she'll be here today. And these are my brothers and sisters, too, who have been murdered. So I'll start. Siraj Ayad Abdelal. I feel myself shaking right now. He was 8 years old, and he was bombed. He was killed. We have Muhammad Ayman Ashur, who is 15 years old. I see some 15 years old kids in the audience, some middle schoolers in the audience. Some of you have children who are 15 years old. Some of you have siblings who are 15 years old. He was murdered. Hussein Yusuf Kawadi, Basim Salam Kawadi, both of them were siblings. Their father is now, he doesn't have both his children. 13 years old, 10 years old. Musa Habib, 16 years old. He's a year younger than me. He was bombed. Dunya Mahdi Hamad, 16 years old, she was killed in the same exact bombing. Ahmed Arif, 13 years old. My brother, he's around that age. This kid was bombed. Muhammad Malikai, and I want you to listen to this. He was 1.5 years old. He was bombed. He was murdered. He was killed. His mother is left without a son. 1.5-year-old. And I want to ask you, what did a 1.5-year-old child do to deserve this? And I know I'm taking up a bit of time. And I said I wouldn't read all of the names, and I won't, but I just want you to hear the names of these children. Here today, I have the name of a martyr who was killed. His face is over here. It was a year old. This is something that happened a year ago. This has been happening for 73 years. For 73 years, we have been seeing the illegal occupation. We have been seeing the displacement of families. We're seeing refugees in a native land. Can you imagine that? Imagine being refugees in land where your father and your grandfather and your great-grandfather were from. That is what we are seeing. And I will continue. Maryam Ata Muhammad, who was 11 years old, she was killed in the bombing. Abdullah Ramadan Abu Ghazal, who was 5 years old. Yasmin Muhammad Al-Matawaq, 4 years old. And I don't think I can continue, but these are the names of children who are murdered in Gaza, and these are just a few names. These names continue. And I don't want you to just think of them as numbers, right? We say 60 children were killed, and then people aren't moved by that. These are real people. These are people that are the ages of our children, of our siblings. These are people whose families have, been wiped out. Sometimes we're seeing literal houses wiped out. You see that there were a house full of 13 people of extended family, grandparents, 3 generations wiped out in one bombing. This is not a conflict. We are not seeing a war right now. A war happens when 2 parties are equal in power. We are seeing illegal occupation by Israel against the innocent Palestinians right now. So I did take a bit longer than I anticipated, and I apologize for that. But we will continue on with our event today. You will be able to hear more stories of Palestinians, of stories of allyship and solidarity, inshallah, today. And I will start off by introducing Sheikh Abdurrahman Dardasawi, who is the Imam of ICW, mashallah. He's renowned for his beautiful recitation. And he will be reciting Quran, Sheikh Ibrahim Dardasawi. Did I pronounce your name wrong? Ibrahim, I'm sorry. I read the name of a lot of people.
MashaAllah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Peace be upon you all. We'll recite some verses from the Quran. But I wanted to thank you all for coming here today. Standing in solidarity with our brothers and sisters who've been killed, displaced from their homes, attacked in their sacred or one of the most sacred places of worship, Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. And it's not anymore a secret or any propaganda behind seeing the footage, seeing the videos all over the social media, all over the media. Except the blind. Even the blind could hear the sounds of those who are killed when they're attacked by the rockets of the Air Force, of the occupation. Except, I said, the blind could neglect the truth. I could say it's a conflict, or it is something that I don't know about it. It's not anymore something that you don't know about it, because we can see it, and you can do very small 2 or 3 minutes of searching over the Google, and you will find out the truth. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كونوا قوامين بالقسط شهداء لله ولو على أنفسكم أو الوالدين والأقربين إن يكن غنيا أو فقيرا فالله أولى بهما فلا تتبعوا الهوى أن تعدلوا وإن تلووا أو تعرضوا فإن الله كان بما تعملون خبيرا. You who believe, uphold justice and bear witness to God, even if it's against yourselves, your parents, or your close relatives. Whether the person is rich or poor, God can best take care of both. Refrain from following your own desire so that you can act justly. If you distort or neglect justice, God is fully aware of what you're doing. Why it's a must for every single human being, every single one of us, to support Palestine and Palestinians right now. Why? And I will say it from 3 perspectives. The first point, as a human being, all the rules and international laws gives the right to live in peace, the freedom to speech, the freedom to live with dignity, with honor, for everyone except Palestinian. Why? That's a big question. We've been asking this question, and we will ask this, and we're still asking the same question. Why are not considered as a human being? So as a human being, it's an obligation for us, on every single one of us, to support those who are innocent, to let them have their rights, right of live in peace, to have the right to live with dignity and honor in their own land, in their own homes and houses, without being attacked and killed and displaced. That is the first thing. I don't hear free Palestine. Can I hear that? Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
How many children did you kill today?
Hey, Israel, what do you say?
How many children did you kill today?
Hey, Israel, what do you say?
How many children
see that Netanyahu is announcing. He announced that 200 of the terrorists been killed, right? And when you look at the statistics, you find out more than 150 out of 200 that he counted were children and women. Then you know what is the truth. You complete the sentence. Then you know who's telling the truth and who's lying. It's an obligation for every individual from the people of faith, from all faiths. That's the second perspective. It's a must for every people of faith, from every religion, to stand in solidarity with Palestine, because not any of these religions allowing oppression and transgression. It is prohibited in all religions. It is prohibited to oppress, to transgress, to kill the innocents. It is prohibited. Our beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, our messenger, told us in the prophetic tradition that our God is saying, "Oh my servant, I have made oppression and transgression prohibited on myself, and I have made it prohibited also in between yourselves. So do not oppress yourselves and do not practice oppression between each other." That's what Islam told us. In Islam, and this is the third perspective, as Muslims, we are obliged to stand with justice, no matter if it's against ourselves or against our parents or against our relatives. It is an obligation for every single Muslim to stand with the innocents and with the weak and with those who are oppressed against the oppressors. That's an obligation that we cannot put down. We cannot let go. If we wanted to be true Muslims, true believers, then that's an obligation on us. And if you want to see how Islam made it an obligation that you cannot escape, you cannot neglect, look at the practice of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, himself, and look at the practice of the Islamic history for the leaders, for the state of Islam. All over the history, you will find out that every single religion has the right to practice their religion without interfering with them. The Prophet commanded the leaders, the commanders, when they are going to fight, do not get closer to any temple, to any worshiper, to any woman, to any tree, to any kid. Do not get closer to them. Do not touch them. If someone fights you, then fight back and then defend yourself. That is our teaching. That is what Islam teaches us. And that's why we are obliged as a human being, as people of faith, as Muslims, to support those who are weak, no matter, regardless of their religion. That is what we learn and what we teach our people. May God bless you all. May God bless the people of Palestine. The time will come when the truth will prevail. The time will come when we stop saying free, free Palestine, and we will say Palestine is free, inshallah. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Louder, please! Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine! Thank you so much, Sheikh Ibrahim Dardasawi, for your beautiful recitation and your moving speech. Inshallah, one day we will stand here as well and say that Palestine is free. That day isn't far, and we won't forget those who have lost their lives in this occupation, inshallah. Next, we have with us the president of ICW, Ibrahim Antar. He will be giving a welcome speech. If we can have Ibrahim Antar with us.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First, I would like to thank you for coming for this gathering today. That the minimum support we can show for the Palestinian people and the Palestinian cause, we appreciate it, and the people of Palestine do appreciate it. Second, I welcome our distinguished guests here today to come and show their support for the Palestinian people and stand against the aggression and the killing of innocent people in Palestine. What I want to talk about today, just briefly, remember when this all started? It started during the holy month of Ramadan, right? And it ignited on probably one of the holiest months of the year, maybe Laylat al-Qadr. So deep inside of me, I believe this is a divine moment for Palestine. This is a turning point. Palestine, before Ramadan of 2021, is not the same. After Ramadan is not the same before Ramadan. You can feel it. I can feel it. The change is coming. There's one thing I thought. I participated in a couple of demonstrations in downtown Chicago. And I look around and I look at myself, gray hair, old memories of Palestinian and Lebanon and everywhere else. And I saw the young people. And if you allow me just to guess here, the average age of the people protesting downtown Chicago, and probably everywhere else, is probably in the early 20s, maybe 21, 22. So my age is diluted. What that mean? That means the Palestinian cause right now is in the hand of our young generation. These are the fourth generation of the Palestinian Nakba. Palestinian people has been suffering the occupation and the destruction and the apartheid and the discrimination and the killing for 73 years, 1948. And they continue to suffer. But guess what? No more. You know why? Because Palestine before Ramadan 21 is different than Ramadan after 2021. And you can see it, and I can feel it. Now, first of all, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for stopping the killing. For 11 days, our Palestinian brother and sister was slaughtered every single day. And guess what? They probably met at the United Nations maybe 5 or 6 different times to demand stopping of the violence and stop the killing of the Palestinian people. Out of 15 permanent members of the United Nations, they all agree. They want to condemn the violence by the Israeli for killing innocent people, and they want to demand an immediate stop of the killing innocent people. Only one country stopped it. And I don't. You probably know which country is this I'm talking about.
The U.S.
And I can talk about it a little bit later. It is very important for us as Americans to take a stand. I see this generation, we're moving things here, right? And we continue to move things. The demographic change, our power change. Muslims are growing. Our voice is louder, but not heard. We need to make our voice heard. Yeah, we can scream, free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! But we want that guys in the White House and those people in Congress to listen. It's not just listen to, we need to hear our voice, and they need to, because listen, our movement is growing. Now, the young Palestinian in Palestine, 48, in Palestine, 67, in Gaza, in West Bank, and they're carrying on the Palestinian cause. And we have one nation, United States. standing against that project because it's the blind support of a state that's doing a killing of innocent people. You know, I was reading in the news, they have a Channel 12 in Israel. They have an interview with one pilot. His name is letter D, maybe David, God. And they asked him, what's going on in Gaza? You know what he said? He said, we were frustrated. 11 days we were killing and shooting and throwing bombs, and the missiles still continued to come, okay, and Hamas tunnel are not destroyed. So we want to kind of vent our frustration, and they start bombing tower, residential tower, businesses, infrastructure, water supply, sewage system, road. This is genocide. This is a holocaust. And we have a responsibility here in the United States as American citizens. As American citizens believe in justice, believe in freedom. You cannot just have a double standard when it comes to Palestine. It has to be one standard. America said, we support the freedom fighters everywhere. But why not in Palestine? Why not? If Palestinian, self-defense is a God-given right. It is the United States right. Every nation under the occupation have the right to defend itself. You have the right to defend your country. You have your land, your family. This is a right. But when Palestinians carry a gun to fight, he's a terrorist. Uh-oh. And when a Palestinian go into protest, he is violent. And when Palestinians speak, he's inciting. It's an incitement. So what is going on here? The people of Palestine deserve to live in free, they deserve to live in peace like everyone else. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! One more thing. When you leave here today, you have a responsibility. The war is over, but the cause is not won yet. You have to be active. The movement is growing, and we have to be part of that movement. And we have to be on social media, and most importantly, let your congressman, let your elected official know, don't take my vote for granted. I give you my vote, and you have to stand with my cause. Let him be on notice. Jazakumullah khair. Continue your struggle. Support your Palestinian people. The cause is not over, and it's just beginning, and it's gaining momentum. And God bless Palestine, and God win victory for Palestine. Assalamu alaikum.
No justice, no peace.
No justice,
no peace.
No justice, no peace.
No justice, no peace.
Gaza, Gaza, don't you cry.
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 Palestine will be free.
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 Thank you so much to the sister in the back right now who is doing the chants. I really appreciate her. I think she was my preschool Islamic studies teacher. So shout out to her for being so amazing and for having that loud voice. I see she's covering her face with the sign, but I don't want you to cover your face, mashallah. Thank you for your voice. And thank you to our wonderful president of ICW, Ibrahim Antar, and for encouraging the youth, for saying that it is young people who are now the voice of the movement, and for history, it is young people who have been the head of revolutions, and we are seeing exactly that right now. Inshallah, we can continue to persuade our elected officials to be on the side of truth and justice. Next up, we have with us Pastor Michael Mann of St. Andrew United Methodist Church in Carroll Stream. Michael Mann, we can have you with us right now.
Thank you so much. And so my question is, why would a Christian rise to speak today? I want to tell you, because I am here. We are all God's people. together. I write because my faith compels me to believe that all God's children are precious in God's sight. I rise because the God whom we name and worship together calls us to live in a peace with justice. I write because the one whom I follow, the Palestinian man who taught me to love my neighbor. I join today with Palestinian Christians, Muslims, and Jewish kindred in feeling a connection to this place that has a special meaning for us. My church, the United Methodist Church that I'm a part of, has repeatedly spoken out against what we have called the that better? Repeatedly spoken out what we call the confiscation of Palestinian land, or the construction of settlements and walls, a confiscation that subverts any peace process and violates human rights. We acknowledge that those actions only deepen desperation, and that leads to further violence. And that is what we see now. I'm here to bear witness with you that we will continue to work with you as we have before, as ecumenical and interfaith bodies to advocate for Palestinian self-determination and an end to Israeli occupation, to affirm the right of return for Palestinian refugees under international law. As a broader United Methodist Church, we have long worked in Palestine. In Bethlehem, we have supported a Palestinian Conflict Transformation Center. We've taught and spoken out about what is happening throughout Palestine. So I rise today to say that yes, Christians oppose the continued military occupation of the West Bank, Gaza and East Jerusalem, the confiscation of Palestinian land and water resources, and the destruction of Palestinian homes. It harms all of us. I rise to stand with you, to oppose the violation of human rights. I rise to stand with you to support the vision of one in whose image we are all beautifully made. I stand as a Christian to support a vision of us as God's children, standing together for a peace with justice for all. May God bless us as we stand together today. Amen.
Amen.
End the occupation now! End the occupation now! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! End the occupation now! End the occupation now!
Thank you so much to Michael Mann. I think that it's right now that we should recognize and understand that Palestine is a country, is a nation that has one of the oldest Christian populations. So obviously this has been boiled down to an issue that is a religious conflict, quote unquote. It is not that. It is one where Palestinian Muslims and Christians are being persecuted right now. So next up we have with us Usama Jamal, who is the chair of U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations. If we can have Usama Jamal take the mic right now.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Peace be to all. First of all, I'm very grateful and thankful for this invitation to express our views, our solidarity, and our support for the Palestinian people. The U.S. Council of Muslim Organizations is an umbrella for national, regional, and local Muslim organizations in the United States. And as such, we have an obligation to represent our community and express the views and the demands for a large sector of our community and for a cause that touches every Muslim, whether Palestinian or none. And therefore, we engaged with the White House, with the State Department, and with other authorities that have a say in making decisions. I'm not going to touch on the history and what happened. My colleagues most likely will be talking about these things. But I will let you know what we are doing from now forward, from the ceasefire forward, how we are going to deal with the Palestinian issue. As you may all know, the Secretary of State is scheduled to go to the Middle East on Wednesday and to meet with the Israelis and the Palestinians. So the U.S. Council of Muslim Organization is engaging diplomatically with our State Department. And I wrote him a letter with 11 specific asks. And that's what I'm going to share with you, so that we have to build a pressure on our government that they have to do what is right, what is morally right, what is an American policy that should be followed. And I'm going to tell you the 11 demands that we have asked Secretary of State Antony Blinken. First of all, to cease immediately the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians and the depraved legalization of the appropriations of their property and land in Jerusalem, the West Bank, and Gaza. Number two, to cease immediately the 14-year internationally illegal siege of Gaza. Number three, cease immediately its occupation of all lands, including the West Bank and Gaza. Number four, disband immediately all 132 illegal settlements in the West Bank, all 135 illegal outposts across Palestinian territories, and restore, safeguard the property rights of all Palestinians forcibly removed from their homes and in around Jerusalem, including the more than 70 families of Sheikh Jarrah in East Jerusalem. This must include the immediate removal of the more than 650,000 illegal Israeli settlers, colonists from these Palestinian lands and properties, all in violation of Article 49 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, prohibiting occupying powers from transferring their populations into territory it occupies. Number five, repeal immediately the apartheid nation state law that asserts the right to exercise national self-determination in the state of Israel is unique to the Jewish people, that a united Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and that the state will act to encourage and promote the establishment and consolidation of the Jewish settlements, Israeli settler colonial establishments that are against American and international law. Number six, bring down the Israeli separation wall, dividing Palestinian communities and peoples, and declared illegal by a United Nations court, along with immediate removing all illegal checkpoints designed to categorically prevent the free movement of Palestinians and their goods in their own country and on their own lands, and to systematically humiliating them. Number seven, seize military, police, and extremist militant Zionist incursions of violence and desecration into the Haram Sharif, the noble sanctuary, the entire 35-acre hilltop of which is in total Islam's holy sanctuary of Masjid al-Aqsa, including into the silver-domed Mosque of the Prayer Direction, Al-Masjid al-Qibli, and the golden domed Mosque of Dome of the Rock, Masjid al-Sakhra, or Qibbat al-Sakhra. Number eight, seize all Israeli police settler and Jewish citizens, brutality against the Palestinian and Arab citizenry in the pre-1948 lands. Number nine, acknowledge in law immediately the Palestinian right of return to all Palestinian refugees and internally displaced and their descendants to the homes and lands from which Zionist terrorist groups and later Israeli militia apparatus ethnically cleansed them without discrimination based on ethnicity, religion, or any other classification. Number 10, seize immediately the political detention of Palestinians, including children, women, and men, and release all political prisoners while striking in its internationally illegal and morally reprehensible laws of indefinite detention. And we also told the Secretary Blinken that the Israeli government stands now in violation of 28 binding UN resolutions, including, but not limited to resolutions 54, 111, 233, 234, 236, 250, 252, 256, 262, 267, 270, 280, 285, 298, 313, 316, 468, 476, and so on. That's the country that so blatantly trying to exercise its own right being above the law, and that will not be tolerated. Brothers and sisters, we have also asked Secretary Blinken to make sure that they open the passage to Gaza. It is unacceptable to put 2 million people in an open prison, that they deny them any access to real life, life where they have health care, electricity, water, food, and everything that they need to live. We have asked him to provide passage to our Muslim American relief organizations who have been doing a great job helping everyone around the world. And they do need to have access to Gaza, the one that is in immediate need for our assistance. We have to build the pressure on them. Without building the pressure, we will come back again in a few more years and we will be talking about the same thing. More children being killed, more women being killed, more destruction into Gaza. Gaza has sustained so many incursions by the Israelis. Destruction all under the so-called the right to defend itself, whereas the Palestinians have no right to defend themselves. This got to stop, and we can only stop it when we build more pressure. Certainly, things have changed. Not so much, but it's a good beginning. I want you to thank and support Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez for the joint House resolution that will stop any sales of arms to Israel until we have an investigation, that we have an oversight of the use of these weapons that will never be used against civilians, against children, against women. Together, we can make a change. Otherwise, we'll come back to weep and to say, free Gaza, and Gaza is not free. We have to build the pressure. Call your representative. Ask him to support this bill. We have so many in Illinois. They have not yet joined the joint resolution. So make sure to call your representative and tell them I want you to support this. Thank you. Thank you for our guests here who are going to give you much more on the issue of Gaza. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept those who have died with no reason to die, other than the pluralism, the savagery that Israel has exercised on the Palestinian people. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Not another nickel, not another dime, no more money for Israel's crime. Thank you to the sister in the back. We would have loved to have you up here and do the chants as well, but we have our sister Aya, who's an activist. Mashallah, she's also a spoken word artist. She'll be here doing the chants, and she has a spoken word for us a bit later today, but she will be doing the chants just for a little bit.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
I am so happy to be here, so happy to see that our religious spaces, that our mosques are standing up for freedom for Palestinians. I think it's so important that we bring this into these spaces to show that this is it's a sacred issue, really, is what it is. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to, before going into the chants, I am going to talk to you a little bit about the power of our words. I'm going to be real with you guys about something right now, and that is that as a poet, we often feel this sense of, what am I doing? Are my words making a difference? Because our contributions, these poems we write, are effectively words. They are always words, written and spoken. And so I've faced so many times in my life where I felt, do these words matter? Are they making a difference? They're not tangible. They're not tangibly creating change. So what is the point? And some of you in the crowd may be poets, some of you may be writers, some of you may be just your average person who doesn't enjoy writing or writing poetry or reading poetry at all. Either way, you have been contributing to this with your words in some way. Raise your hands if you have shared a social media post. Probably more than one, am I right? Raise your hands if you've talked about Palestine in the last 2 weeks. Yeah. And raise your hands if you've experienced the questioning, the inner dialogue of, am I doing enough? Yes. Is this making a difference? Absolutely. And my answer to these questions for you guys today, I want to remind you all that the answer to that question, these questions are my words effective? Do they make a difference? Is an unequivocal yes. So there are definitely non-negotiable baseline things that all of us should be doing, and I hope if you haven't done, you should do after you leave today. And if you've already done, you should go home and do again today. That is calling your representatives. Oh, my pen is catching. Calling your representatives, BDS, absolutely, and making some sort of prayer for God to come through, which He always does and He always will. But we need to show Him that we are ready to receive whatever intervention that He's going to bring. Now, those are the baseline stuff you should all be doing. But when it comes to words, I tell you that your words also matter and they're also important with a story. I'm going to tell you a story that's going to remind you of this. This story is the story of a Sahabi, a companion of the Prophet named Suhail ibn Amr. Now, Suhail ibn Amr actually didn't convert to Islam until way later. Actually, when Mecca was opened. Okay, the Fath of Mecca. Before that, he was an orator of the Quraysh. He was literally the spokesperson of the Quraysh. It's like the Speaker of the House. He was a passionate and talented speaker. And he used his words specifically to defile the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. He used his words to speak out against him, to defame his character, all in the name of defending against bringing someone who was going to advocate for worship to one Lord. When he was captured at the Battle of Badr, Umar, radiallahu anh, who was one of the closest companions of the Prophet, being close to the Prophet and being a Muslim himself, naturally wanted to cut the tongue of this man off. After defaming the character of such a beautiful person for so long and bringing so much harm through it, he literally asked, can I cut the tongue of this man off? He's our prisoner of war. Why not? In his anger. And in the gentleness of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and in his wisdom, he replied, don't. Perhaps he will fulfill a position that may please you. Saying, Asa an yaquma maqaman yusirruka. Yusirruk. This man, you would never think, eventually converted to Islam, and not only converted to Islam, he became one of the most passionate, most powerful, most beautiful orators for the sake of Islam. He would speak in the most beautiful way to call people to God, to the worship of God. This is to show you, as we're standing outside a place of worship, that your words are powerful. Your words are tangible things in and of themselves. Why do you think Israel recently bombed a high-rise building housing the largest, the most significant journalism offices? We know that's a war crime, right? It's a crime against humanity. Journalists are not to be touched, and yet they did it because they were desperate, because they knew that their atrocities, that all their massacre of Palestinians was being documented, recorded, and put out for the world to see. So keep speaking. Don't let them forget. Don't let them fill the silence with their propaganda, because they will if you stop talking. The truth is never redundant. So can I hear you all repeat after me? Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Intifada, intifada! Long live the intifada! Your resistance is righteous. Your words are righteous. You are speaking out for those who are trying to, but are literally being killed on the ground. So one more time, free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
You're amazing. Literally, you are absolutely phenomenal. I think whenever I see, other young people, other young women on the stage making changes that are out there, she's an activist, right? She's not just here speaking on the stage. She's an activist in her everyday life. I am just floored. You are phenomenal. Thank you so much. Next up, we have with us Joe Yuha. Yeah, I think we could get another round of applause for her. Pastor Joe Yuha, sorry, I was getting to that. Pastor Joe Yuha, who is a Lutheran pastor from our neighboring Faith Lutheran Church. Pastor Joe Yuha.
Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. I'm Pastor Joe Yuha of Faith Lutheran Church in Glen Ellen. My church is a member of the ELCA, a larger group of churches who has an advocacy group in Jerusalem and the West Bank known as Peace Not Walls. They, alongside the Association of Lutherans of Arab and Middle Eastern Heritage, put out a statement weeks ago. I'll read a part of that. The Association of Lutherans of Arab and Middle Eastern Heritage is concerned and disheartened by the violent events that are taking place in East Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip. We stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people who are facing the threats of expulsion and home demolition. Jerusalem is important to Christians, Muslims, and Jews. It should be a city of peace and worship for all people. It cannot be claimed exclusively by any one group. Denying the rights of its Arab residents to live in equality in their homes will only bring suffering and injustice, but never peace. Equality and freedom, not exclusivity and domination, should be the guiding principles of both policy and practice. I had the privilege years ago of traveling to Jerusalem and the West Bank. The organizer of our trip started our time in a settlement where we heard the polished propaganda. And then every home we visited, every site we visited after that, lie after lie of the settlement was stripped away till we saw it for what it was: oppression and occupation. One of the foremost guiding principles of my faith is to love one another as you would have them love you. The prophet Jesus and my Messiah said this: "All will know you are my disciples by the love you show one another." Let me tell you what does not show love to your neighbors. It does not show love to your neighbors to build walls, shutting out people from their family, shutting them out from economic opportunity, shutting them out from medical and other much needed resources. It does not show love to our neighbor to invade their land and settle on it, claiming the land as well as its resources. It does not show love to our neighbor to block supplies and reject aid to Gaza under the vague threat of weapons being imported. My faith compels me to action and to speak out. And so I pray for and call to an end to all violence in Israel and Palestine, and especially to the unjust attacks and restrictions perpetuated against the Palestinian people. I pray for an end to violence, yes, in the form of violence and bombing, but violence in the form of systematic oppression in so many ways that has been perpetuated for so long against the Palestinian people in the West Bank and in Gaza. And I pray that the United States and Israel and many others can get over the love of weapons and the love of money and move into a time where we see all people as being equal, all people as being equally loved by God. The narrative that I see out there is that Christians firmly support Israel in all matters. And my final prayer today is that that narrative changes, that Christians see the oppression and the violence perpetuated against the people of Palestine. My prayer is that God, who changes hearts and minds, continues to work on Christians and on all people to stand up for free Palestine. Thank you.
Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
Thank you so much, Pastor Joe Yuha. Next up, we have with us Reverend George D. Smith, who is the rector of St. Mark's Episcopal. Thank you so much, Reverend, for being here with us today, and you can take the microphone.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon. Yes, my name is George Smith. It's a common name. And I am serving at St. Mark's Episcopal Church in Glen Ellen, representing a community of faith, and I share their greetings with all of you and prayers for peace. As part of the Episcopal Church, like Joe's church, the Lutheran Church, we're part of a bigger church in the United States called the Episcopal Church, and then in the world, the Anglican Communion. And they're Anglicans working in the Middle East, in Gaza, running a hospital there that is a sanctuary. And so Anglicans are putting their money, their time, and their lives for peace and for healthcare in one of the most dangerous and difficult places in the world. The Abrahamic faiths all emphasize one God. We say in the Creed, we believe in one God. Do we believe in one humanity? Do we believe in one human family? I wish we would say that as much as we say we believe in one God. And today is the day of Pentecost for many Christians, and one of the scriptures that we read is from Psalm 104. I want to read just a quick passage from that. O Lord, how manifold are your works! In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. You send forth your Spirit, and you renew the face of the earth. May the glory of the Lord endure forever. May the Lord rejoice in all his works. To add to that, I would like to share with you what our presiding bishop, Michael Curry, who leads the Episcopal Church in the United States, has written to not just Episcopalians, but to everyone. One more time, we receive the news of violence that has caused death, life-changing injury, and destruction of property and lives. Violence which is born of frustration, rooted in injustice and the violation of international law, and, in truth, the violation of human rights and human decency. In the name of the God of all creation, the violence must stop once and for all, regardless of where it comes from and to whom it is directed. One more time, the Episcopal Church stands to say that violence is not the way forward. We say the expansion of Israeli settlements at the expense of Palestinian families must end. We say incitement which encourages violence must end. We say enough is enough. One more time, the Episcopal Church encourages the government of the United States and all others who have influence, who are of goodwill, and who genuinely seek peace and to be partners in peacemaking, to bring about a negotiated settlement to the long-standing conflict which has consumed both Israelis and Palestinians. One more time, we find ourselves full of sorrow and sadness. We find ourselves grieving over the loss of life, destruction of homes, and the fear that lives in the hearts of tens and thousands of innocent people. We join all people of faith to offer up prayers for healing, wholeness, restoration, and reconciliation. And we pray to God to grant wisdom and courage to all those in authority to seek peace and pursue it without delay, without excuses, without confusion, and with only one agenda: a negotiated and equitable agreement for peace between Israelis and Palestinians once and for all. And I offer you these words from Michael Curry that I join in 100%, and again with peace and blessings on everyone from the people of St. Mark's, whom I represent today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend, for being here with us and for your speech. We have with us next Kareem Irfan, who's a former CIOGC chair and an international interfaith leader. He'll be giving his speech on the topic of call and prayer for justice and peace.
Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters. And for our fellow Americans and friends from other faiths, I tender heartfelt salutations of peace. A quick aside before I begin into my brief talk, for this wonderful young lady, never, ever question the power of heartfelt, passionate words. That is the only way that revolutions and changes have taken place in the history of mankind. Your power of your words coming from your heart, that is what will change this situation. Sister, let us hear a couple of your words.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
My dear friends, today we stand together for justice and peace in the wake of terrible destruction of innocent lives, homes, and infrastructure in the Palestinian region. As people of faith, even as the monsters of hate, anger, discrimination, indiscriminate violence, and racism once again rear their ugly heads, we gather with faith in our Creator as the fountainhead of peace, who created us in the image of peace, and to be subscribed to peace in our worldly dealings as an avenue of peace in the hereafter. We gather with faith in the inherent goodness in God's creation, and faith in the core values of equality, justice, fairness, and dignity for all. As faith representatives of this great country, we reaffirm that every life, whether it is in Palestine or Myanmar or Xinjiang or Yemen or even Israel, is equally precious, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, gender, or nationality. We cry out in anguish and pain for every life lost, every family forcibly displaced and torn apart from their ancestral homes, every future destroyed by the indiscriminate violence running rampant in the Palestinian region today. The ceasefire in the Palestinian crisis has halted for now, after incredibly brutal hostilities, bombing, and destruction there. Over 11 days of indiscriminate aggression, the Israeli military has killed over 250 Palestinians in Gaza, including 66 children. More than 1,800 Israeli airstrikes have destroyed a number of buildings, including scores of residential towers and over 33 media institutions. Thousands have been injured and displaced. Gaza infrastructure was crippled, including hospitals, roads, water, and electricity. And yes, Hamas rocket attacks have killed 12 people in Israel, including 2 children, and they have raised fear across the region. My dear friends, as US citizens today, we must take a clear stand against airstrikes and bombings of civilians and infrastructure. Israel contends that its citizens should not have to live in fear of rockets raining down. Nor should people in Gaza live in fear that they might become collateral damage from Israeli bombing, which inflicts 20 times or more of killings and vastly higher destruction. As one commentator best put it recently, could US dollars, our tax dollars, also be used to build an iron dome for Palestinians against Israeli bombings? Is that not a fair request? It is. Gaza today is a sea of rubble, and the scale of the destruction will not allow a return to normalcy for some time. The fighting may be over for now, but for millions of Palestinians living in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, the indignities and the humiliation of occupation continue as a part of daily life. We must, as United States citizens, demand, speak up, and act for an end to the occupation. And when should that end, sister? Now. Say your slogan.
End the occupation now! End the occupation now! End the occupation now!
As US citizens, my dear friends, we must take a clear stance for the rebuilding from this destruction in Gaza, for international aid for the families with lost lives and injured, for homes and businesses that have been destroyed, for building of hospitals and reconnection of water and electricity lines. And this must be done without any halting of transfer and moving routes. Palestinian protests on behalf of families facing the threat of illegal eviction in Sheikh Jarrah has galvanized a youth movement that has spread across Jerusalem and the West Bank, and it has led to civil rioting amongst Arab communities in Israel. In the midst of the Jerusalem protest, let us be reminded, police tear gassed and sprayed this foul-smelling skunk water at protesters at the old city's Damascus case, right next to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. As Palestinian demonstrators threw rocks to make a statement, Israeli forces entered the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Islam's third holiest site, firing stun grenades at protesters and worshippers. This happened just again yesterday after the ceasefire too. So, as US citizens, we must take a stand for maintaining the status quo of the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Abrahamic places of worship. We must do so with urgency now. The Palestinian families facing possible eviction have been living in that Sheikh Jarrah neighborhood north of the old city since 1956 in an arrangement brokered by the United Nations to find homes for more than 700,000 displaced during the establishment of Israel in 1948. Let us be very clear, while Israel dismisses this issue as a real estate dispute, the United Nations is very clear that the evictions are illegal under international law. We must take a stand not only against the illegal occupation, but the continued illegal settlements and the continuing illegal evictions, and for the right of return for the displaced. We must do so now. Lastly, Israeli occupation, treatment of Arab citizens also poses serious human rights issues. Last month, a Human Rights Watch group said that Israel institutionally discriminates against Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, as well as in Israel, and it has accused it of committing crimes of apartheid and persecution. The Israeli civil rights group B'Tselem has declared Israel, and I quote, a regime of Jewish supremacy from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. This is apartheid, is what they say. And as Jordan's foreign minister perhaps best summarized recently, he said Israel today has employed two separate legal systems, one for the Palestinians and one for the Israeli Jews, which is the textbook definition of apartheid. And that word, my dear friends, was taboo a few years ago, until most recently in being applied directly to Israel. But today it is no longer taboo. We are living in the George Floyd era, where racial injustice inside the United States is no longer tolerated, and injustice anywhere should no longer be tolerated. It is definitely not acceptable against the Palestinians in the Palestinian region. We, as United States citizens, paying tax dollars which are being used to fund weapons that are used in this illegal manner, we must stand up for our rights and demand the corrective action. We must take a stand against apartheid-like actions of Israel, against its Arab citizens, against the ill treatment and discrimination against Palestinians. So, my dear friends, fellow Americans, people of faith, and people of morality, let us act together as brothers and sisters in humanity to speak and act in pursuit of truth and justice for the suffering Palestinians. Let us today commit to acts of sympathy and support. Prayers are good, my dear sister, you asked for it. But let me tell you, counting myself and pointing the finger at myself, these prayers are a cop-out for me. Too often I say, I feel good. Oh, I offered a prayer. I do that. I sometimes have the privilege, and we have these wonderful imams here. I lead the Friday sermons, and the devil comes in and says, "Oh, you've done your share. You prayed. That's the least that I can do. I don't deserve to be alive if I don't pray. I don't deserve to be alive if I don't act upon that prayer." So today, let us commit to actual acts against the oppressed and the discriminated against, whether it is the Palestinians today or the African Americans, the indigenous Indians, the Asian Americans, and other minorities across the US, whether it is the persecuted in Myanmar or Xinjiang or those facing destruction in Syria or Yemen or Africa. Let us act, my dear friends. So for each one of you, as I leave, this prayer is not good enough. The words that this young lady has asked you to be inspired by, not good enough. Each one of us has to go back, take some action, call our congressmen, call our senators, and demand action with full confidence that this is your country, our dollars, tax dollars are at stake. Demand actions. May the Lord guide us to inspire acts of selflessness in defending those in need in our country, across the world, and particularly in Palestine today. Amen.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Thank you so much, our brother Kareem Irfan, for your moving words, for describing the realities of what is happening right now because of Israeli occupation. And I think that you make it very clear what we are seeing happening to innocent Palestinians. Next up, we have Abdullah Mitchell, who is the Executive Director of the Council of Islamic Organizations of Greater Chicago, better known as CIOGC. Brother Abdullah Mitchell.
Assalamu alaikum. And peace be with us all. You know what is encouraging this afternoon is seeing different faces coming out in support of a humanitarian cause. As we just heard from Kareem Irfan, this fight for human dignity, the fight against human abuses, doesn't know just one color, it doesn't know just one ethnicity, but it puts an obligation. And I don't need to lecture you on the morality of your faith and what you believe. And a lot has already been said about the injustices that are occurring currently in Palestine. There's no need for me to address that issue with you. The point that I do want to address, because I've heard it often, too often, and that is the right of self-defense. We had our congressional leaders, 22, stepped up and signed a letter saying no more killing in Gaza. Then we had 300 congressional representatives saying Israel has a right to defend itself. And that causes some people to hesitate. Well, everybody should have a right to defend themselves. They're sending these hand grenades over or rocket grenades, and they're killing, as we heard, at least 12 Israeli citizens. 2 of them were children. So there's a right of self-defense, but that right is not absolute. That right does not embolden you or empower you to to unjustifiably take the lives of women and children. And how can I best get you to understand really what are we talking about? What's the magnitude of the disproportionate response? Kareem mentioned it to us. It's multifold, 20, he said. But what makes you can understand what we're really talking about? What if what if someone came and slapped me? And in response, what do? I take this chair and slam it across your body and across your head and across your face till you don't move again. When you send 1,800 bombs into a small area, is that returning a slap? Is that really the right of self-defense? It's not. It's disproportionate. And you need to understand what that means. That must be your motivation to do whatever these previous speakers have said, to speak out. It's not hard to write a letter. It's not hard to call these congressmen. How can 300 of them not see the inhumanity of the actions of the nation of Israel? Is it really that they're seeking truth? Or are they just puppets for a system that only we, as the citizens of this country, can change? With your voices, we can bring that change. You know, another thing about this right to defense, I heard, and I don't recall which one it was, but I think it was one of their military commanders saying, is yes, we have a right to defense, but we want to strike fear in them. Well, what does striking fear have to do with the right to self-defense? But when you, like I said, continuously bomb a whole residential buildings, bomb the commercial building, bomb the communications building, is it really right to defense? Or are you systematically destroying a country, destroying and killing a people? That is not self-defense. Those are crimes against humanity, and we must speak. We must act. Another aspect I want to share quickly, to give you an understanding what it's like. You've heard references to this place called Al-Aqsa, this place that's called the third most holiest site in Islam. Well, I need you to just kind of take yourself back to where you worship, whether it's the Lutheran Church or St. Mark's. And if I came in on Christmas Eve, if I came in during Good Friday services and I shot stun grenades in there, how would you react? Would you feel you have a right to stop this? We must recognize what is happening in the 50 plus years. And I'm not going back I'm going back to the time period that Palestine has been occupied. Let's just start from 67 and all that time period. When we talk about occupation, the only thing that has been occupied are been the lands of Palestinians, and it's been taken over by Israeli citizens. This is not occupation. This is not a right to defend. This is, in simple terms, apartheid. In simple terms, crime against humanity. In simple terms, we all must act. My last point I want to share with you is this, and I'm paraphrasing the words of Dr. Martin Luther King. It's the ultimate sin or wrong is not the actions of the Israeli government. The ultimate wrong is for each of us to stand by silently and to let this continue. I can't tell you every different way you can make a difference. You can do that, and you must step up. Today must not be an event in our life where we came together and expressed solidarity for another group of people who are oppressed in this world. Today must be the day that we start the process, assume the responsibilities and the obligations our faith puts on us, that our Creator puts on us, and stand up for justice, however that may manifest it in your everyday life. Thank you.
Sister, I apologize to my fellow panelists. I have another Palestinian rally to speak at.
No problem.
Free
Free Palestine. Next up, everyone, we have with us Sister Amira Dawood, who's with American Muslims for Palestine. She will be addressing us today. Amira Dawood, if you can have you.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. It's actually really inspiring to be standing here in front of such a beautiful and diverse crowd, all standing in solidarity with Palestine. I am the granddaughter of refugees from Palestine, from Ain Karim, from 1948, when the occupation first started. And it's nice to see that we have people standing with us and that we have the support of our fellow humans. But it also weighs heavily on me knowing that we still have a big responsibility here in the US towards our Palestinian brothers and sisters. Just a few days ago, we watched as they celebrated the ceasefire and the end to the devastating bombing and killing of innocent lives. Here in the US, for many of us, it was a bittersweet moment. Their resilience and steadfastness was beautiful, and it made my heart jump for joy. And I'm so happy that they were able to celebrate and they had smiles on their faces again. But it made me think of the ayah that with every hardship comes ease. Allah promised us, with every hardship there will be ease. So yes, the bomb stopped, but our leaders are still supporting this military occupation. They are still sending money for this consistent land theft and apartheid, which makes it all the more clear that at this pivotal moment right now, our stance as Americans is of the utmost importance. Yes, the bombing stopped, but the occupation is still alive and well. We cannot let this moment pass, brothers and sisters, without taking a firm stance and telling our leaders that we will not stand for this anymore. We need to go big and bold right now for Palestinian liberation. There is no return to the status quo after this. It is time for Israeli settler colonialism, ethnic cleansing, apartheid, military occupation, and blockade to be dismantled now. Our work as AMP has made it clear that once Americans know the truth about their tax dollars, where they are going, and that they are going to this long-lasting and last military occupation in the world, they will not stand for it, and they will demand that Congress makes a change in their foreign policy in the Middle East. And our work on Capitol Hill has shown us more than ever that once congressmen and women know the truth and the facts about their government, they will take action. In the past week alone, we heard about the joint resolution that was introduced disapproving of the $735 million in weapons sales going to Israel, as Israel was actively bombing Gaza, by the way. Our own Congresswoman, Marie Newman, is calling on our government to put pressure on Israel to stop the displacement of residents of Sheikh Jarrah. And Representative Betty McCollum introduced Bill H.R. 2590 to promote and protect the human rights of Palestinians and ensure that our tax dollars are not to go to arresting children, seizing homes, and the destruction of property and annexation of more land. The tide is turning, and we need to be at the forefront of these actions and support our representatives for fighting for us. Our goal today is to stand in solidarity with our brothers and sisters, but being here means nothing unless we take action, like the brother was telling us. So the big question is, what can we do as American citizens? We've all been hearing, you have to take a stand, you have to make your voice heard. This is actually very easy. I think we all have cell phones, right? Pull out your cell phones. Everybody pull out their cell phone. We all have them. We're always glued to them 24/7. I know I have been. I got a notification a few days ago. Oh, you've been on your phone a lot, more hours this week than last week. And I was on it for 38 more hours than I was in Ramadan. Imagine that. So I know we're glued to our phones. We're all looking, we're all reading, we're all watching the videos, and we're all upset. So what can we do? Well, the very first thing is you can go to sanctionisrael.org. Sanctionisrael.org. Bookmark that website, and that page will take you to a list of actions that you can do. And it's very, very easy. It will take you directly to the website where you can contact your congressmen and women, to the petitions, to sign the petitions. We just launched as AMP a new national campaign to petition Biden to sanction Israel. And so if you go to this website, it will direct you to those 4 steps that you can take. And one of those last steps was a call for a national march on Washington, which will happen on Saturday, March 29th, inshallah. More information will be available. There will be buses leaving Chicago that will take you there. We all need to make our voices heard. And this is how we can do it. This is how we can do it. And we all have to educate ourselves. There's a lot of information out there, and not all of it is accurate. ANP will help you to understand exactly what's happening and give you the exact information that you need to know to fight for this just cause. If you follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, you will find resources that will give you that information and to educate your children. That famous saying, the old will die and the young will forget. Our young are not going to forget. Like the brother was saying, the young ones are the ones that are leading this revolution. And they are the ones that are fighting for our right and for our land. So let's educate ourselves and our children so that they will be able to properly do this, inshallah. And the next thing is, you're going to send a text message right now. Open up your text messages. I'm going to give you a second. You're going to text CJP, that stands for the Coalition of Justice for Palestine, CJP. And here's the number. It's 833 694 0414. CJP to 833 694 0414. I'm the one that's holding the account, so I expect my phone to start blowing up right now with a bunch of people adding it. CJP.
Wait a minute, the phone number.
The phone number, okay, it's 833 694 0414. CJP. And what's going to happen is you're going to get notified about all events going on in Chicago for Palestine. Oh, it's already starting. I love it. Thank you, guys. 833 694 0414. And that's going to ensure that you receive all details about events for Palestine going on in Chicago, including the March on Washington next week. And you're going to receive notifications about action items as they become available to us, so you can stay on top of what you can do as American citizens. And finally, brothers and sisters, we at AMP need individuals who are committed to sustained work, and we'd love to have new volunteers who would like to join our team and help us to continue the work for Palestine in the U.S. If you're interested, please see me after. I will take your information. And we all know the hadith that whoever of us sees an evil action, let him change it with his hand. And if he is not able to change it with his tongue. And if he's not able to do that, then with his heart, and that is the weakest of faith. Let us please not be of the weakest of faith. Let us not just make our dua and make our prayers. Let us use the tools that we have at our disposal to change this evil and to free Palestine. Thank you. I'm sorry, not March 29th. There is going to be a march on May 29th. I apologize.
From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you so much, Sister Amira, for the work that you do with American Muslims for Palestine. Thank you to all of you who pulled out your phone and texted. Inshallah, you got a response. I just texted the number and I got a response. Next up, we have with us, we're almost nearing the end of our event, so don't get too tired. We're almost done. We have with us Junaid Ahmed, who's a candidate. He's a congressional candidate for Illinois District 8. He has been actively involved in community service throughout his life with young people and social service organizations. Junaid Ahmed, we can have you on the stage now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First of all, thank you to Sister Amr Abdullah Mitchell, my mentor, Khalil Demir, which I never cease to learn from, Sheikh Ibrahim, and Abu Ibrahim, by the way, Sister Zahra, Amina, Sister Raya. You know, we are here on this beautiful day. We could have done things which are with our family, could be more fun if you want to call that, but we chose to be here for something which is way more important than what we can accomplish on a normal day. You know, it has become a habit. I write a speech, and then when I get in front of the crowd where I feel very comfortable with the crowd, I kind of throw the speech away, and then I talk with my heart. And today I will talk with my heart, and I'll share my personal experience. About 5 years, 4.5 or so years ago, I was in Palestine. I had to go to Tel Aviv for work. My wife and my 3-year-old daughter at the time, we were staying at the hotel in Tel Aviv with the hijab and the young girl, constant staring in the hotel. How did you make it here? Why? What are you doing here? I constantly hear that without hearing a word, just by their eyes, a lot of them. And I made it a point that I would leave work at about 3 or 4 p.m. and immediately from work, we would not get back to the hotel. We'll go to Masjid al-Aqsa. That was for a week. Every day we did that. And quite an experience every time we passed a checkpoint. We were going in an Israeli car with an Israeli driver. And apparently in the background, there was some sort of a clearance with the car that they would not bother us. They would just come. The guy would say something in Hebrew, and then we pass by. And one day, I was getting motion sickness by reading in the back. So I asked my wife if I just go to the front. So I sat next to the driver. Same thing happened. We were going through a checkpoint. We were passing through. The guard at the soldier at the window said, go. The driver was taken off. A couple of soldiers on the other side, they saw a hijabi in the back, a guy with a beard in the front. Immediately, they're thinking there's a Palestinian family without being scrutinized passing through the checkpoint. They come running. They put their machine guns on the car. The car had to come to a squeaking stop. There was one machine gun towards my window. There was one machine gun facing towards the rear window where my 3-year-old daughter and my wife are sitting. That was an experience. Honestly, it's not a big deal if you think about it, considering what Palestinians go through day in and day out. But I just wanted to share that one experience of a little nothing. It was scary at the time, I'll be honest. But that was nothing. The driver came out of the seat and he started yelling at them. The only couple of words that I could understand, one of them was American. And then they let us go. They did not question us. Second experience I want to share is when we went to Bethlehem, and this is not even Gaza. This is not even bombing. This is life outside of bombing I wanted to share about. I think you're reading from news messages, the forwarded messages, what's going on there. I don't need to be that news media. I'm cheering the life, which is a best case scenario for the Palestinian family. That's what we're talking about here. The second instance, coming back from Bethlehem, back into Tel Aviv, we were pulled over. Now this is the border, right? Quote unquote. And then there's a young kid. I would say kid because I think he was probably about 18, 19, maybe 20, 21. I don't know. Very, very young man. He started questioning, and his English was fluent, as if I'm talking to an American. And then we kind of got casual in that discussion. In that casual discussion, he goes, "Oh, I'm from New York." I'm like 5 steps back. "You're from New York?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was born in New York." I'm like, "Okay, oh, so you're an Israeli citizen born in New York?" And he goes, "No, I am an American citizen who is also an Israeli citizen." And to me, I could not absorb it. Obviously, it's a common practice. I found out that our own mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, served in the Israeli Air Force as well. How does that make sense? Can I go and serve in Egyptian army, in Saudi army, in Pakistani army, in Indian army? I don't know. I don't think so, from what I understand. The bipartisan support to Israel has been so strong, has been so unjust, that it is time that it has to go. It has to go, and we had to start this time when 21 of the U.S. House of Representatives have actually stood up and said, no more. No more of our taxpayer money going to kill the innocent citizens. No more of our tax money going for this oppression. We have started this work a few years ago. We have reached out to our elected officials. I've personally met Sean Castian. We tried to work with him. We tried to meet Raja Krishnamurti. We're talking to them about what are you doing about the basic health care for our citizens. A lot of jargon comes out. Nothing serious. No meat to it. No college education access to our children. Just empty words coming out. No justice when it comes to foreign policy. And the peak and the zenith of that injustice is when it comes to Palestine. We are saying that is going to stop. And that is going to stop now. One thing is to do just what the sister just asked us to do. We're going to stand up. We are going to call our representatives. We are going to call our senators. We are going to call the president's office. We are going to demonstrate. We are going to show up in large numbers. But guess what? We are going to increase our space on that table. And that's where we are going to stand up for Congress. We are going to ask for the demands. We are asked for justice. When it comes to local policies, we are going to ask for justice. And we are going to ask that we support the causes, especially when it comes to Palestine, which are not oppressive. Our dollars are not going to be used for oppression anymore. No more that is going to happen. The work has started. It will continue. And inshallah, we will make it to Congress and we will stand up in the Capitol Hill. We will stand up in front of all of our elected officials. We will stand up in front of the President of the United States of America. We will stand up in the front of the people of America. And then we will say, no more oppression, no more oppression, no more injustice. Bring justice to people of Palestine. Jazakallah khair. Salam alaikum.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
These stories that he was sharing, I've actually heard them multiple times. That's my father over there. My mom is right over there in the blue. So I've heard these stories multiple times of injustice. I come from a background where my people are also being oppressed. So I believe that all oppression across the world is interconnected, and justice and peace for one people, for one community, mean it for all of us. It is a progression and improvement for all of us. Our last speaker, actually before I introduce our last speaker, I will just kind of give you an overview of what's going to happen in a little bit. So we're going to have our last speaker. He's amazing, phenomenal, save the best for the last type of thing. And then we will have snacks, so don't leave. And then after that, we'll take a group picture. So don't, stay in your seats for a bit. Our last speaker today is Khalil Dimmer. He is the Zakat Foundation of America Executive Director, and he has a message and request for all of us. Khalil Dimmer.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam ala Rasulullah. Free, free Palestine.
Free, free Palestine.
My ear is bad. Can I hear a little more? I'm getting old, please. Free, free Palestine.
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 Thank you so much. Now I hear it, right? So, when I said I'm getting old, but I don't have any doubt that where I'm going to leave, my little sister I are going to continue, and my little Ertugrul, I used to say, but he's big Ertugrul, Junaid going to continue where I stay, or if I'm not anymore there. Ibrahim and I think they drive all the way from Detroit, or they come yesterday. They honored us all the way to Detroit to be here today. And I see more young brothers and sisters, they stay throughout this event. And I know our future is guaranteed. Thank you. May Allah bless you being here. Because, you are our hope. And you are hope of Palestine. And you are hope of Gaza. And staying here, just staying here, raising your voice itself, being a human being. You don't need to be a Muslim. You don't need to be a Christian. You don't need to be a Jew. You don't need to be a Buddhist. But be a great human being is required that you stand for Palestine. You stand for Gaza. You stand for justice. You stand against the occupation. You stand, when we say occupation, people think that is the land you occupied. Do you know that if you are a Palestinian girl, if you would like to marry a man that is in 48, the land that occupied, that you are not allowed to marry? You cannot even marry the man. We are talking about occupation of every aspect of your life. We are not talking about the land. We are talking about a cancer patient elderly woman cannot make it to hospital. That is the occupation we're talking about. We're talking about 16 cancer patient children in the hospital of Gaza cannot go and get a treatment. I can give you the names of these children. We're talking about the occupation. That is the occupation. It's not like, you're talking about a land or anything else, my brothers and sisters. I would like to give you two examples to be symbol of the justice. At the time, there were times that Muslims were a superpower. And that superpower was run by a man called Suleiman, the Solomon the Magnificent. So the land of the Solomons start almost from Italy all the way to border of Iran, started from Black Sea all the way to the Indian Ocean. They were building a gate in Jerusalem. And today they call Gate of Jaffa. So when they were building this gate, they wrote on the gate, while completed, they say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. There is no God but one, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. Kanuni Sultan Suleiman said, no, you have to remove these. In this city, in this holy city, there are Jew, there are Christian, and there are Muslims. You have to be respectful to the Christian and the Jew. You have to say, we all agree on one, and that is Abraham. You have to say, La ilaha illallah, Abraham Khalilullah. That was a justice. 1939, a ship full of the Jew immigrants came to the shore of the United States in Miami. And these immigrants running from the Nazi Germany to save their life. United States deny the entry of these immigrants, return the ship back. Some of them jumped out of the ship and saved themselves. Eventually, 1/3 of them went back to Germany. We don't know their destiny. A ship called, MS St. Louis ship is very famous. You can look at, check, and study. You will see. Now, United States, 2012, U.S. government apologized for this injustice. Then let me take you, please, back to South Africa. It was an apartheid regime. It was a brutal regime. It was a minority that oppressing a majority of black people without any frame, creating this country called Bandustan and every kind of the racism experienced by the black. In the world, whole world were against this apartheid regime, except two governments were supporting this apartheid regime. Can you guess which country were supporting this apartheid regime in South Africa?
England and the U.S.
There were two. Nelson Mandela said that, God bless him. He said there were two countries. State of Israel stand with apartheid regime, racist, white supremacists in South Africa. A second was the United States government. And we ask today, United States government, don't make again a mistake. You don't need to apologize to Palestinians. You don't need to apologize to Gaza. What you have to do, be a fair man and just man, a real government, and stand for justice and stand for Gaza.
Free Palestine!
Free Palestine!
I'm in charge of the Zakat Foundation of America. We, an international humanitarian organization under the leadership of the Interaction, we send a letter to the State Department. We send a letter to Joe Biden. President Biden's requested that we gain access to Gaza. We gain access to Gaza, humanitarian relief. Gaza has thousands and thousands of injured people. There is no medicine for it. I have an email here in my pocket. I can show it to you. Today morning, I get from Sister Dua. Sister Dua is a pharmacist, and she's the emergency responder. She's in the car, driving in the street of Gaza. You can see her pictures and her email. Not only that you have COVID, but you have these injured people, and hospitals are full. There is no place to go. No place to go, no medicine to provide. So I'm asking for good-hearted American people. You are Jew, or you are Christian, or you're Muslim, or you are a human being. Feel the pain and cry of the Gaza. Allow, support the diplomatic effort of this government. Allow the humanitarian organization create a center where we can work with the diplomats. We will work with United Nations offices. We provide service to Gaza. I ask you, please, one time, do right things. And today is that right time. As a Zakat Foundation, we have promised we would like to give, inshallah, 10,000 families next 10 weeks. 10,000 families, we're going to give food packages, 10,000 food packages. That is weekly food packages, also the hygiene packages. Food packages are $50, hygiene packages are $5, and water is a box of water at $5. So $60 we are collecting for taking to Gaza. You can follow us with the social media. You can see our activities. So our partners. There is a Gazan student. I tell you, the brave man and woman, like all over the world, and I promise you I'm going to finish it. So I get an email from this young man. He is applying to Virginia Tech. So he got a scholarship from us through a family that based in the United States. He's going to come and study. Send me an email and say, you know what, Brother Khalil, I would like to volunteers, but the partner organization that you mentioned is bombarded. Where can I volunteer in Gaza as a young student? What can I do for you? And I know our future is guaranteed. So $60 and we are 100 people. So I'm hoping that we have 100 food packages. I don't want to ask you to raise your hand. I know the masjid is here. Sheikh Ibrahim is here. Brother Allah is there. Brother Ibrahim is here. And other families are here. So please, I ask you, support us with 100 food packages. So I'm going to ask most, if you don't collect these 100 food packages, you're going to send me these check, brothers. Okay? So otherwise, it's your job. Thank you so much. May Allah bless you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Free Palestine.
Free
occupation now.
End the occupation now. So I know I said we're done completely, but I kind of lied. We're done with all the speeches, but we have a spoken word by our beloved Aya here, and I think it's a great way to end today. Aya, if we could have you, and you can perform your spoken word.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh again. Peace be upon you all. I'm back. Before I begin, just because Mr. Demir was just mentioning donating food packages, hygiene kits, I worked as a Cat Foundation for a number of years. One day I hope to come back because I've seen their work on the inside and it's really incredible. They build greenhouses in Gaza, they rebuilt homes, and now what they really need is food and hygiene packages. So when I say speak up, your money speaks. So put it somewhere where you know it can help. It's the least we can do. This first poem I'm gonna read, the first and only, don't worry, is a reminder that the liberation movement of Palestine is a sacred one. And I chose to say this one because, like I said, we are in front of a mosque. We had a number of representatives from different churches as well. And I really believe that our prayer spaces need to be places that amplify justice and stand against oppression of any kind. And even further, our individual spiritual selves need to be deeply rooted in this work in whatever way we can uniquely contribute, which you can figure out for yourself. Every single person in this crowd has something spectacular to offer. This discomfort with getting political is in fact a cop-out to valid outrage over the divine right to human dignity, not to mention international law and human rights violations. So I want to remind you that speaking out against genocide, apartheid, occupation, fascism, oppression, all of these is not unprofessional, nor political, nor controversial, nor complicated. It's actually the simplest of all statements and stances, so don't let people dupe you into thinking you're being a little too much. There was once a time when the law had legalized atrocious systems like slavery. Digest that. The law was backing these systems. That is how you know that there is a law, capital L, higher than human law. There is divine law, written by God and protected in every and all of his creation. Muslim or not, Arab or not, human or not, that tree is sacred right there too. And the greatest arbiter of this divine law is your human conscience. Don't lose it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. When I say my heartbeats belong to my heart, only as much as waves belong to the sea, I mean my heart belongs to holiness only as much as it belongs to Palestine. Palestine. You are the shackles and the key. The way we long for your streets, the way we pray you are free. I swear this is a strength time itself cannot break because time is on our side and every ticking is a step toward justice divine. And the more pain inflicted, the more prayers to God are lifted. O Aqsa, the scene of Isra and Mi'raj. How many prophets have you welcomed? How many massacres have you watched? How many tears shed? How many victories won? Still, you stand bearing witness to the one, a God who does not abandon the ones who do good, a God who honors the very trees growing where his beloved once stood, a God who swears by the fig and the olive, a God who in every sunrise and sunset paints his creation solace. This isn't complicated. It's as black and white as the metal guns you point at children, hoping to incite. And if the static on the radio also lacks color, your silence as you look on shows the only green you care about is that of your dollar. Take your art, Take your fame and take your credentials. What do they mean if your stance on genocide is preferential? This isn't unprecedented, and history repeats itself. From the Crusades to South Africa to Algeria's revolution, liberation is the only natural evolution. Time leans not in the favor of tyrants, and God has written the fate of the arrow. Have you not read how the whole of the sea collapsed on the Pharaoh? The people are an ocean, and every wave tells the same story. That this isn't your world to wreak havoc in. It has always and will always be God's territory. I ask the oppressor, are you not afraid of the screams of a mother whose child has been ripped out from her arms? God knows every leaf that falls, so surely he has recorded every tear that has fallen too. God knows the plans of the wicked, so surely he has accounted for every one of your rockets before it flew. Do you not humble yourself before a grandmother older than your so-called states? Woo! And then you conflate extremism and self-defense to hide the fact that you have nothing but hate. You just want that land plot. You want that estate? Where is God in that? I don't see his name. But we'll continue to prostrate to an ever watchful Lord, the one from whom nothing creates. Make no mistake. God will open the floodgates the way he sent literal angels to fight alongside believers at Badr. Your claims are so weak that you're afraid of a fair fight. You can't even respect prayer. Then tell me you have a sacred right? In this religion you despise, of the greatest sins is oppression. God is fair and doesn't compromise when toward his servants there is aggression. He honored us. He honored them. You can see it in the dignity of those women and men, mountains on earth. When they are moved, the whole earth quakes. They're the vanguards of God's house. When a single stone is touched, their very heart breaks. There is an inner fire even water cannot put out. Remember Abraham at the stake? God defends the innocent. This is a promise all of humanity cannot shake. Oh people, these are the birth pangs of restored justice and sprawling green land. Oh people, lift up your hands. Say, oh gentle, oh just, upturn their plans. They're brazen of will, but full of falsehood. What good is saying, if only we could, when the we we're addressing is actually us? It's not what we should do. It's what we actually must. Thank you.
I think that was an amazing way to end our afternoon today. You are phenomenal. Thank you for sharing your story, the story of your family, and the story for Palestinians across the world who may feel the same exact way. There are actually a couple of things before I let you guys take your refreshments. So, for obviously, firstly, donate, right? I know that someone was going around with a donation box. Over there, there's a donation box. So I $60 is not a lot, right? I know if you can't do all of that, half of that, even if it's, you know, less than that, whatever it is, there's nothing that is considered too little. So please, please donate over there. The donation box is there. The second, and zakat.org. If you want to donate more than that, feel free. I'm not stopping you. And then we got the text message. Follow up with that. Make sure you're, you know, don't just leave here and be like, wow, that was amazing. Or wow, I feel educated. You got to do something with that education. Last thing over here, my Abu over here, right? The launch of his office is on June 12th in Schaumburg. We rented Bernie Sanders' old office. I know there's a lot of Bernie fans here. So inshallah, show up on June 12th, all right, you guys? So I hope to see a lot of you on June 12th. We're always talking about, oh, my congressman doesn't care. My congressman is pro-Israel. My congressman is actually, the only thing he said was, oh, Hamas this and Hamas that. He didn't say anything about Palestine. He didn't say anything about Gaza. So when we have people from our community running on grassroots, right? They're running on your support. We need to see you June 12th in Schaumburg. All right, you guys? That is pretty much the end of today's event. Jazakallah khair, and to all of you for showing up. We really, really appreciate your solidarity, and we hope to continue to see you, inshallah, in future events and refreshments. Just kidding. We're going to have that, and then we'll have refreshments, inshallah, and then we'll do a group picture. So make sure you're not leaving yet.
Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulullah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to relieve our brothers and sisters in Palestine. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be with them, to support them. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to end the occupation and to let us pray in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa when it's liberated very soon, inshaAllah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be with the oppressed people and to let us able to support them all the way and to be with the humans. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all our shortcomings of supporting them. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to let us be able to support them as much as we can. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم انصر عبادك المستضعفين اللهم انصر عبادك المستضعفين في كل مكان في غزة وفلسطين وفي كل مكان يا رب العالمين كن معهم ناصرا ومؤيدا ومعينا وظهيرا يا رب العالمين اللهم مددك وغوثك وعونك يا الله اللهم مددك وغوثك وعونك يا الله اللهم مددك وغوثك وعونك يا الله اللهم فرج كرب المكروبين في كل مكان كن مع الضعفاء والمظلومين نصرك الذي وعدت عبادك المؤمنين اللهم عليك بكل ظالم طاغية متجبر انتقم من الظالمين في كل مكان اللهم كن لنا ناصرا ومؤيدا ومعينا ثبتنا اللهم بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين اللهم تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وأصحابه